Hey guys, I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
And this is Two Neighbors. Ryan, what do we got going on today?
Alright guys, so today we are going to learn about a taxi cab company owner that just happened to be one of the richest guys in the world. Believe it or not, he had 3 taxis, and I think they made about $1 billion a year. So very successful taxi business.
Wow.
And that is none other than Mr. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. This is called
Pablo.
10 Things That Netflix Didn't Tell You About Pablo Escobar. So,
right.
I would say, I mean, some people know an extensive amount about Pablo Escobar, but I would say
many movies about him.
Yeah, I'd say the large majority of people walking around today are probably, you know, they're getting their facts from Netflix. And, you know,
Narcos.
Yeah, exactly, from Narcos. Amazing series. If you guys haven't watched it.
He really likes it.
I think I've seen it all the way through like 5 times now, which is insane, but I think it was very, very well done. Wagner Moura that played Pablo Escobar, not even Spanish.
Yeah, I know, that guy's a crazy actor.
He's Brazilian. He didn't even speak Spanish. And they said, you know, maybe this role would be right for you. He goes, except for I don't speak Spanish. So he went to university in Brazil, learned Spanish, auditioned, got the role, and he did a fantastic job.
That's crazy.
It really
That's some hardcore dedication right there.
Yeah. So
yeah, great series. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Pablo Escobar. He was a hero in his country.
He was in the beginning.
He
was in the beginning to people, and again, you know, it showed there was a lot of poverty, and he took care of a lot of people. But I think
killed a lot of people.
Yeah, he did. And then towards the end, I think a lot of people saw him for what he was, you know, and all his good acts of kindness, which he did do. They kind of went out the window with all the killing.
This many good acts of kindness. This, not so much.
But there was still like in his home, like his hometown, like where, you know, like his specific, I don't want to call it village, I guess that's where he's from. He was still very, very loved, and there was still like murals up of him and stuff like that. But we're going to learn a little bit more about Mr. Pablo Escobar today. Before we do, guys, a couple things quickly. If you haven't done so, hit the subscribe button, turn on that bell for notifications. We do all kinds of different videos, everything from like stand-up comedians, try not to laugh, to some educational, entertaining stuff like this. And before we get in, today's video is brought to you by a very special sponsor, Adam.
OKSwag.com, where you can get all cool Canadian-themed swag, hoodies, crew necks, t-shirts, some with cool designs like USA on it. Obviously, Pablo Escobar's fan. Check out OKSwag.com, punch in 2 neighbors in the coupon code, and you'll receive 20% off. Plus free shipping and pay no tax. I think this one to my house was $32. Canadian. Yeah. So available now at Canadian and American addresses.
All right.
Pablo Escobar, a man who commanded respect and admiration among his supporters, while simultaneously striking fear and outrage in the hearts of his rivals. Love him or hate him, he certainly left his mark in both Colombia and the United States. But how much do you really know about the richest drug lord in history? I ain't just talking about facts you might have learned by watching Narcos either. Here are some of the more mind-boggling things you may not already know about the king of cocaine. Number 10. Rags to riches, by any means. Mr. Escobar may have gotten a taste for the finer things in life when he started to make the big bucks, but his start was far from luxurious. You see, when Pablo was born, it was during a civil war in Colombia called La Violencia. You don't need to be fluent in Spanish to understand what that means. A 10-year war between conservatives and liberals left 200,000 people dead, and many survivors were plunged into poverty. To make things harder, Pablo was the 3rd of 7 children in his family, meaning that there were a lot of mouths to feed, but not much food to feed them with. Pablo's brother, Roberto Escobar, recalled that his brother was a thinker and the quiet child of the family. One of Pablo's early money-making schemes involved robbing tombstones, scratching off the names of the deceased and reselling them. Turns out there's not a huge market for second-hand gravestones, though, so inevitably the drugs took over as Escobar's main product. Number 9. A major supplier. Pablo's new line of business had plenty of repeat customers, the majority of whom lived in the United States and were willing to pay a premium for his addictive goods. Demand for cocaine surpassed the demand for coffee, and the Medellin cartel was smuggling up to 15 tons of it into the States every day. Escobar would pay inspectors and border guards to look the other way, lest they choose the wrong option when confronted with Pablo's famous phrase, plata o plomo, which roughly translates to, take my silver, but take my lead. Let's just say anyone who held up Escobar's supply line swiftly disappeared. Experts say that 80% of America's cocaine was at one point supplied by Escobar's cartel. And his supply line consisted of 142 planes, 20 helicopters, 32 yachts, and 141 homes and office buildings. Wow. Number 8.
What an operation.
Pilot paydays. Of course, even with most people looking the other way, Escobar needed people who were willing to fly his product to the United States and take the risk of getting caught. The man himself actually accompanied his first few deliveries as far as Panama, but soon gathered a few trusted pilots who would fly all the way to the US on his behalf. Their planes would have their tires filled with cocaine, which would then be swapped for cash upon delivery and returned to Colombia. Sometimes the cartel would export jeans to the United States too. Jeans which have been soaked in liquid cocaine to be extracted and sold once they'd reached their destination. Wow. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Number 7. Forbes' finest. After building his lucrative empire, Mr. Escobar started mixing with some esteemed company and even tried to become a legitimate politician at one point. In 1987, when his net worth was estimated at over $2 billion, he appeared on the Forbes richest list for the first time among the world's 100 wealthiest people.
Wow.
Forbes described him as a husky 5'6" man normally given to rugby shirts, chino pants, and sneakers. They also called him a prime example of Colombian paisa, an aggressive, unsentimental country hustler. Another founding father of the Medellin cartel, Jorge Luis Ochoa Vasquez, also appeared on the list as the second of only 2 Colombian billionaires to appear on it. Even after receiving 3 federal indictments in America, Escobar was able to keep his place on Forbes' rich list for 7 years running. Funnily enough, Forbes even predicted his downfall in 1993, saying, "We suspect that, as have his fellow drug lords, the Ochoa brothers, now languishing in jail, Escobar will soon leave this list. Perhaps this earth." Number 6. A home for hippos. Remnants of Escobar's legacy can still be found in the country today, but I bet you didn't think one of them would be a group of wild hippopotami.
His own private zoo.
That's right. The cartel boss had his very own zoo within his 5,000-acre estate, known as the Hacienda Napoles. It contained plenty of exotic animals, including antelope, ostriches, elephants, giraffes, and hippos. When Escobar was taken out, many of the animals were given a new home. But 24 hippos escaped and started breeding down the river, dubbed the cocaine hippos. They're now the largest group of wild hippos.
They're aggressive animals, hippos.
Yeah. Been featured on National Geographic. Get a load of that. Number 5, an expensive rat problem. Hey, we all lose money from time to time, but when you're stockpiling mountains of cold hard cash like the Medellin cartel was, it creates a unique problem. According to Pablo's brother/accountant Roberto, Pablo was earning so much that each year he would write off 10% of the money because the rats would eat it in storage, or it would be damaged by water or even lost. That means rats were literally eating through millions, if not billions of dollars. Pablo placed a lot of trust in his brother Eduardo to manage his finances, but ultimately it was Eduardo who ended up being the biggest rat of all. As stated by Pablo's son, Sebastian, in his book called Pablo Escobar, My Father, quote, "My uncle Roberto Escobar, the official informant of the DEA, actively contributed to delivering him to his enemies." Number 4, burning bucks to stay warm.
Oh yeah, I heard
Pablo
of that.
Escobar wasn't a miser. He splashed the cash and paid both his employees and potential enemies very well. He was also a devoted family man, well, for the most part, and cherished his inner circle above anything else, including money. When he and his family were on the run and were holed up at a hideout in the mountains, Escobar's younger sister Manuela became ill with hypothermia. According to Pablo's son, the drug lord took 2 sacks filled with approximately $2 million in cash and made a bonfire out of them to keep his family warm. Almost brings a tear to your eye. He did also blindfold his family while traveling between locations so that they couldn't tell the police where he was hiding if any of them were captured. Escobar was kind of paranoid at this point. Another one of his famous sayings was, "Better a grave in Colombia than a cell in the United States." Number 3, essential office supplies. Any decent businessman has to factor in expenses, travel costs, advertising, office supplies, and of course,
The elastic
to give
band.
you an idea of just how much money the
elastic
Medellin cartel
bands,
was
yeah.
making. It would spend about $2,500 a month on rubber bands
A
alone.
month.
Just to hold the huge amounts of cash they were dealing with.
Wow.
I mean, the average monthly wage in Colombia in 2020 is only around $1,350. It's no wonder then that many Colombians worshipped Escobar as kind of a Robin Hood figure. Even a small fraction of the money he brought in was enough to help build neighborhoods, homes, schools, even hospitals. He also funded Medellin's soccer team, Atlético Nacional. And upon hearing the news of Escobar's death, 20,000 residents gathered at his local cemetery to pay their respects. Number 2, personalized prison.
Oh yeah.
Tensions between Escobar and the Colombian government was at a boiling point. Rather than risk an extradition to the United States and a likely lifetime behind bars, Pablo used his power to negotiate his own surrender and worked out a jail term of just 5 years. Hey, but that's not all. He only agreed to
Yeah, the
serve his time
compound.
if he could build his own prison, staffed by his own guards and overlooking his family home. I mean, the cheek of this guy. You gotta love it. Like, despite literally thousands of deaths attributed to the drug lord and his cartel, as well as the obvious trafficking charges and many other crimes, Escobar had evaded the authorities on numerous occasions and was causing havoc in the country. The government gave in to his requests, and the prison was built to Escobar's specifications. As you'd expect, he made it a haven for himself. Nicknamed Club Medellin, it had a soccer field, a disco, a jacuzzi spa, a bar, and Pablo's cell was basically a luxury master bedroom. A phone line and fax service even let the kingpin take care of his smuggling business from the inside. After reports of his cushy lifestyle and gang-ordered executions came to light, the Colombian government tried moving Escobar to a military facility. Well, that didn't go so well. A shootout during the transfer allowed Pablo and his men to escape through the mountains and go on the run once more. Number 1, buried treasure. Now obviously, Pablo's net worth was pretty huge. It was estimated to be around $30 billion at one point.
That's crazy.
The truth is that nobody knows for sure just how much he really earned. A lot of the money he made is still unaccounted for. The DEA reckon that
Let's go digging.
$3 billion still buried somewhere on Colombian soil.
I wonder if people are looking for it still.
I'm sure people come across it from time to time.
$1 worth of guns, gold, jewels,
They
and
won't tell
straight-up
anybody.
barrels of cash that were buried by Escobar.
It's like Walter
and his
White style.
associates.
Yeah.
They're even using sonar and lots of fancy digging technology to try and locate the rest of his fortune.
That's
Hey,
hilarious.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm fancying myself a quick trip to Colombia with a
I'm with you on that
and a
one.
shovel. I mean, it would be a shame if all that dollar ended up lining the pockets of some dodgy politicians rather than the hard-working man. And just like Pablo's empire, when he was finally gunned down on the rooftops of Medellin, this video is over. Hey, if you learned something new, then I'm about showing some respect.
Wow. Pablo
Yeah.
Escobar, what a legend, but
Yeah.
crazy, crazy man.
So-
like, I wonder the paranoia that you would have being like a kingpin.
I think,
like that.
I mean,
like,
there's been interviews with people, like some of his sicarios who were around him near the end, and said like he had immense amounts of paranoia, even to the point where he was having some of his own guys killed because he just felt like everyone was
They
out
were
to get
after
him.
him.
I mean, being under that level of stress all that time with people chasing
is
you,
it worth it?
but to show like,
I don't think so.
to show the level of fear that he commanded, there, when I talk about that buried treasure at the end, that money being buried, there was farmers that would come across stuff, like they'd be like digging up crops or
Bodies.
no, they would find the money. Like one guy found $2 million, and immediately, so he found the $2 million, knew exactly what it was. So he called a local guy who was like not connected with Pablo Escobar, but was a drug dealer where he was. Said, I need to get in touch with Pablo Escobar. I dug this money up. I need to give it back, because he was so terrified.
Wow.
It was $2 million to a Colombian farmer, was like life changing.
Wow.
But rather than take that money, go on the run, he's like, I need to get this back.
Yeah, you gotta show respect.
To Pablo Escobar.
Show respect.
Yeah, and it's funny with the prison too, because I watched a documentary actually about the whole building of that prison. It's so fascinating. They spend so much money on the interior, but they spend a lot of money on the exterior to make it look dingy and awful, because they wanted the exterior appearance to look terrible, and the agreement they had was that none of the police were allowed near it or inside it. He had his own guards, which were just his own guys. So they wanted to make it look as awful as possible, but inside it was like a lavish palace.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Ah, man, I love seeing things like this, because I just love to educate myself on history.
Yeah, I feel like when you watch the whole Narcos thing and you learn about Pablo Escobar, I mean, this is one of those stories that if Hollywood just did this story, it would almost seem unbelievable. You would think like there's no way that could happen in real life, but sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Ryan, for bringing that to our attention. That was a great video. Guys, please check out ocanswag.com. Get yourself 20% off when you use the coupon code 2neighbors on checkout, and you'll receive 20% off plus free shipping and pay no tax. Get yourself one of these shirts today.
Rock and roll.
Ryan?
Yes.
What else should these lovely people do?
Like, share, and subscribe, please, guys. It helps us out. We really do appreciate it. When you hit that subscribe button, make sure you turn on that little bell for notifications.
That's it for our show. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Later, guys.